books like these contain a crucial message that you need to listen to if you want to have a happier life. That's what we're going to do in this channel. We are going to extract great lessons from great books, always from the perspective of what can you take out of them. Hello there, my name is Alex, and it's a great pleasure to welcome you to this new project that I've been working on. The name of the project is My Bookshelf, but it is also the second season of my podcast, which is called Are You In There? If you haven't listened to it, I would recommend you to do that. You can find it in any of the podcast platforms. And why it's called My Bookshelf is because I am relying on the books that I have, the books that have helped me on my personal spiritual journey. As you can see behind me, I have a lot of books, and part of the idea of this is to share the wisdom, the insights, the lessons that are in those books that I have behind me, that have been a great source of support for me personally on my journey. And part of what I want to do is to share some of that wisdom, some of those insights with anyone out there who's ready to take on those kinds of messages. I am a psychotherapist, and I have a deep interest in personal growth as well as spirituality. I think that spiritual development and personal development need to go hand in hand. At some point in your personal growth, there comes a point in which you need to take a leap into spirituality, really, if you want to keep progressing. We can say that spiritual growth is the end stage of personal growth. Reminds me of the theory that Abraham Maslow worked on. Maslow was a great psychologist who lived in the 20th century, and part of his theory, it's a hierarchy, really, of the human needs. I am doing this because it's a pyramid. And he says there are different levels of needs that the human being has. And it starts with very basic needs for shelter, security, food, things like that. And the hierarchy starts going upwards. And towards the end, he talks about the spiritual needs, really, which is self-realization is what he calls it. And by that he means getting to know that deeper dimension to who you are. And that's what we want to explore in this channel. How can we merge spiritual ideas with psychological ideas, with philosophical ideas, in such a way that the end result is a practical one that you can take with you? Because I don't think there is any purpose to talk about spirituality or philosophy if there isn't any practical lesson, a simple lesson that you can take with you, that you can implement in your daily life. And I think that's the perspective from which I am approaching this podcast. I am creating it in such a way that every episode deals with one specific book, and that every episode deals with one specific lesson that you can take with you. And as you will see, many of the lessons are very similar. Many of the books that we're going to be exploring are very different. We have non-fiction books, such as the one I have here with me today. We have philosophical books, psychology, religion, spirituality, as we have novels and poetry, all of that. It's a real mixed bag of content. But as you will see, what they point towards tends to be quite similar. And those are the nuggets of wisdom, the lessons that we want to extract in this podcast. Now, when I say spirituality, we need to be clear that I am not referring religion. I think there is a very important difference between spirituality and religion. Religion, on the one hand, has a lot to do with beliefs, whether you believe this or you don't believe this, and practice, whether you attend to church on the Sunday or you don't. Things like that, rituals, things like that. And we're staying away from that in this context, mainly because we're focusing on spirituality. What is spirituality? In its essence, spirituality is about finding a deeper dimension to who you are that is non-physical. That's what spiritual, means. It's the opposite of physical. So spirituality doesn't have much to do with your beliefs, whether you believe in this person or that person, or this book or that book, or this set of rules or that set of rules. No, spirituality has to do with finding that deeper dimension to life, to who you are, that's behind the physical dimension. It's about finding the formless dimension to who you are. That part of you that's always there, that's behind who you thought you were. So spirituality is about finding yourself. And psychology, if you want to improve psychologically, if you want to overcome any mental health issues, whether it is anxiety, depression, addiction, they go in the same path. You can only overcome these mental health problems if you find a deeper, more stable dimension to who you are. And that's what spirituality is concerned with. So that's the sort of material that we're going to be working on in this new project that I have created. And I have a very good book here with me to start with, to give you a glimpse of what we're going to try to be working towards. It's called Awareness by Anthony De Mello. Anthony De Mello was a priest. He was a Christian priest, but he was one of those strange priests that had ideas that went beyond the general constrictions of the Christian belief, really. And by that I mean that the ideas presented here are not conventional Christian ideas, but rather much more general. And as you will see, you can take these on board even if you are not a Christian, really. So I don't want that to be an obstacle. And just a bracket, we are going to be analyzing books from several religions as well in future episodes, really. This is a chapter called How Happiness Happens. And he starts with a story. There's the story of the disciple who went to the master and said, "Could you give me a word of wisdom? Could you tell me something that would guide me through my days?" It was the master's day of silence, so he picked up a pad. It said, "Awareness." He wrote, awareness on the path as a response to the disciple's question. When the disciple saw it, he said, "This is too brief. Can you expand on it a bit?" So the master took back the path and wrote, "Awareness, awareness, awareness." The disciple said, "Yes, but what does it mean?" The master took back the path and wrote, "Awareness, awareness, awareness means awareness." This is probably a Zen story. This is the kind of punchline that a Zen story would have, just to show you that Anthony De Mello had an open view of spirituality. Come home to yourself. Observe yourself. That's why I said earlier that self-observation is such a delightful and extraordinary thing. After a while, you don't have to make any effort, because as illusions begin to crumble, you begin to know things that cannot be described. It's called happiness. Everything changes, and you become addicted to awareness. So he's describing this technique that he calls awareness, and he also uses the words self-observation as a synonym. And he says, if you want to be happy, awareness or self-observation is what's going to bring you there. Now, what is awareness? It's being present, really. Most of the time, we are not present. Most of the time, we are absent. Most of the time, we are distracted. We can say distraction is the opposite of awareness. What does distraction mean? Distraction is when you're not present for your life. When you are either in your thoughts, thinking about tomorrow or yesterday, what happened yesterday that I cannot let go of, what someone said to me last week and I cannot let go of it. I cannot stop thinking about how he dares to say something like that to me when I have done so much for him. Or what my wife did to me 20 years ago, how she left, and I'm never going to forgive her for what she did to me. Can you recognize thoughts like these? These are the thoughts that are the main obstacles to your happiness, as are things concerning the future, thoughts concerning the future. How am I going to cope if this happens? Okay, I have to think, what if this happens? What am I going to do? And if this happens, if I can't sell my house, if I get fired from my job, if my wife leaves me, oh my God, I'm going to be ruined. How can I ensure security for my future? Okay, I need to do this. I need to go to university, then to get this job, then do that, then have 2 kids, a house, a mortgage, a car, all of these things. I'm not saying it's wrong to have a plan, but what I'm saying is wrong is to be lost in future and therefore to lose awareness of the present moment. That's what awareness means. To be present, to inhabit the present moment. Which, as strangely as it might sound, is the only place that is actually entirely real. Because the future doesn't exist. The past is gone already. So what are you left with? What's the main substance of your life? It's this moment. If you haven't noticed, life is always now. Life is always this moment. Life is not a series of moments like we tend to think about it. It's almost the opposite. Life is only one moment that extends in time. It's always now. It's always this moment. And not until you learn to pay attention to that precious moment, you're not going to be happy. Happiness is going to evade you. And part of what he calls awareness is self-observation. So he's talking about the skill to observe yourself, to observe your mind. When you observe your thoughts, when you are able to recognize your thoughts talking about the future or remembering the past, if you're able to recognize those thoughts and observe them, to listen to them as they play in your head, that's part of being aware. That's part of being present. So presence doesn't mean to have an empty, quiet mind. No. To begin with, presence means to observe your mind. To be so sensible to the content of your mind that you're always aware of what kind of thoughts are going through your head. If you can do that, then you are present. And then you are closer to happiness. So somehow we can summarize this by saying that your ability to be aware of what thoughts are going through your mind is crucial when it comes to your happiness. And here's another Zen saying. Before enlightenment, I used to be depressed. After enlightenment, I continue to be depressed. He's paraphrasing a teaching from the Zen tradition. But there's a difference. I don't identify with it anymore. Do you know what a big difference that is? You step outside of yourself and look at that depression and don't identify with it. Now, I can hear you say, I don't have depression. But you can interchange depression with anything else. Anxiety, addiction, whatever it is. Low self-worth, insecurity. And the message is, step outside of it and don't identify with it. So how can we make this into a practical lesson? If you're able to observe the thoughts associated with your depression, such as, I am worthless, what's the purpose of all of this? What's the purpose of getting out of bed? Or the thoughts related to anxiety, which is all about fear of the future. How can I prevent this from happening? What if that happens? What if that doesn't happen? What if I lose my job? What if I can't find another job by the end of the year? What if? All of these what ifs are what create your anxiety. And similarly, the thoughts of worthlessness, of lack of motivation, create your depression. If you can observe them and allow them to be there, that's the first step that you can take towards dealing with it. Stepping outside of them. So we can say, usually your sense of self, your awareness, is immersed in the thoughts, in the depressive thoughts, in the anxious thoughts. But when you learn to take that sense of awareness and take a step back from your mind and you observe it from the outside, that's what he calls awareness. And he's saying there is a big difference in that. The difference is I don't identify with my depression anymore. The depression is still there in the form of thoughts or feelings. And the same with the anxiety. The anxious thoughts are there, the anxious feelings are there, the pressure in your heart, all of that. But you are out of that. You are behind all of that, observing it. And you're not taking it personally. You're not identifying with it. You are not trying to change it, trying to push it away. You're just there observing it. You don't do a thing to make it go away. He continues. You are perfectly willing to go on with your life while it passes through and disappears. If you don't know what that means, you really have something to look forward to. And anxiety, there it comes, and you are not troubled. How strange. You are anxious, but you're not troubled. Isn't that a paradox? And you're willing to let this cloud come in, the cloud of the anxiety. You allow it to come in, because the more you fight it, the more power you give it. You are willing to observe it as it passes by. You can be happy in your anxiety. Isn't that crazy? You can be happy in your depression. But you can't have the wrong notion of happiness. Did you think happiness was excitement and thrills? That's what causes the depression. Didn't anyone tell you that? You are thrilled, all right, but you're just preparing the way for your next depression. You're thrilled, but you pick up the anxiety behind that. How can I make it last? That's not happiness. That's addiction. So he's saying one of the lessons is to have the proper understanding of what happiness is in the first place. Happiness is not thrills and excitement, because you can't have that without the fall that comes after it. You can't have the weekend, the fun, Saturday night fun, without the downfall that comes with the hangover on Sunday and with the depression that comes on Monday when you have to go to work again. You can't have one without the other. So happiness starts with the understanding that there is no positive without negative. There is no thrill without depression. There is no left without right. When you know and understand this, you're in a much better position to handle the ups and downs of life in a wiser way, which is without resisting them. Life is a journey that goes up and down, up and down. And if you're just trying to have it all up, you're going to struggle with depression, anxiety, fear, addiction, low self-esteem. Whereas if you take the standpoint of curiosity, which is one of the ingredients of awareness that he's describing, curiosity, what does that mean? It means to exchange your preference, your judgment. I want this and not that. I want things to be like this and not like that. I want to eat this and not that. If you exchange that for curiosity, for, okay, I'm going to eat whatever comes to my plate and try to enjoy it, or I'm going to have whatever experiences life throws my way without trying to resist them so much. I am going to tackle each day as it comes without hoping it is in a predefined way, but rather open myself to however it ends up being. If I'm low, I'm low. I allow it to be there. I have curiosity towards the emotions. If I am happy, I allow it to be there. I have curiosity towards the emotions. I am always behind all of it. That's the spiritual dimension. The spiritual dimension, where do you find it? Is in you. Is that place in you that's always there. That's always there behind the content of your mind, behind your emotions. And you can only have access to it when you learn to disidentify from your mind and from your ups and downs of emotion. If you learn to observe all of them with curiosity, then you are making progress towards your happiness. You can be happy and anxious. You can be happy and depressed. And it happens when you don't push it down, when you allow it to be there, when you're curious about it. And when you do that, you realize moods, emotions are like the weather. Sometimes it rains, sometimes it's sunny. But you are not the weather, you are the sky that's underneath it all. And the sun is always there. The sun is always there underneath the clouds. The sun, in this metaphor, is that sense of joy that is always there underneath everything. You always have access to that if you learn to quiet down and return to the present moment. So part of the practice of self-observation is making the present moment the primary focus of your life. Instead of being distracted so much, thinking about the future, thinking about the past, scrolling and social media, thinking about how others' lives are better than mine and how people are happier than I and how they have better experiences and I need to have as exciting experiences as they are having. All of this is keeping you trapped in a time-bound sense of self. And when you're trapped in this, you consider future and past so important. But if you want to be happy, if you want to overcome your anxiety, you need to learn to let go of the future, let go of the past. Maybe we can finish with this. He is describing the practice of self-observation in more detail. To watch everything inside of you, your thoughts, your emotions, and outside of you, what happens outside of you. And when there is something happening to you, to see it as if it were happening to someone else, with no comment, no judgment, no attitude, no interference, no attempt to change, only to understand. So we want to change our judgment, our preference, our attempt to change. We want to exchange that with understanding, curiosity, receptivity. So next time that you feel low, don't try to change it. Try to play this game of being curious about it. How would you describe it? This is one of the exercises I give my psychotherapy clients. How would you describe your depression? Take a pen, paper, and write it down. How would you describe it in your body? What color would a feeling like this one have if it had a color. How does it feel in your body? Does it feel tight? Does it feel heavy? Does it feel light? Does it feel... is there tension? Is there relaxation? Is there heaviness? Are there tears? What is it? Can you sit down and try to describe it? As you do this, you are exchanging that desire to change it, with an attitude of curiosity and openness. Makes me think of a quote that comes from the great Sufi poet Rumi. He said something like, "Sell your cleverness and exchange it for bewilderment." What does this mean? Exchange your judgment, your thoughts about how things should be, how you want things to be, your resentment that things are not the way you would want them to be, your resentment that you are in a lower mood than you would want to be. All of this preference, judgment, good, bad, I want this, I don't want this. If you exchange that with bewilderment, what does that mean? Just presence, just being there, openness, being curious about whatever experience comes to your life, rather than just being hungry for the precise one that you want. If you can be open in this kind of way and allow everything to be as it is, allow the experiences that come to you to come to you, then you'll be working towards overcoming your depression and your anxiety, and towards becoming a happier and more centered person. Just one more thing before I leave you. It's a quote by Albert Einstein. He said, "There are two ways to live your life. One is as if nothing is a miracle. The other one is as if everything is a miracle." So let's see if you can put this into practice. Step outside and try to experience everything, every single moment of your life, as if it were a miracle. Because guess what? It is a miracle. The fact that you are alive, that you can experience being a human, is a great miracle. It's only your mind that keeps you busy with tomorrow and yesterday that's preventing you from actually finding that nectar of joy, of happiness that you can only find when you make the now the primary focus of your life. So let's see if you can start putting this into practice, to exchange your judgment, your preference for curiosity, and to learn to live a life that's more present moment centered, rather than just being lost in your mind, in your phones, in your screens, in whatever it is. Let me know if you put that into practice, and I'd be curious to know what your experiences are with these techniques that I am sharing. So make sure that you leave a comment if you have something interesting to share with us. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, click the like button, and also keep an eye for any future videos that I will be uploading with great books such as this one. I hope that you have found this beneficial, and I hope to see you on the next episode. Thank you for watching, and take care. See you next time. Bye-bye.